Hello everybody and welcome to the next video of the course. The topic of this video is strings and also getting input from a user. So the goal of this video is to introduce you to a new kind of variable called a string variable. And then we'll talk about how you can get input or data from a user. So the idea here is, how could you hand off your program to somebody else and have them just click run and not worry about the code itself, and have them give you information? Like, how can you have your program ask the user how old they are, for example, and then have them give you an age? So you want them to type in, say, 30 or whatever, hit enter, and now that 30 has been eaten by the code, and the code has it. So those are the two topics: a new kind of variable and a new way to get input, this time from a user of your program who's not you. Okay, so let's start with strings. So let's just recall what we can already do. We can store numbers in numeric variables. So here are two numeric variables, m and pi. They have names, m and pi, and in this case they have values, right? So m in memory is a box, like an empty box, and then you place 5 into it. And pi is also some box in memory, a container, into which you have placed the number 3.14. Okay, so those are numeric variables because their values are numbers. Well, what if you want to store non-numeric information, like a person's name, like a location, like a city, like whatever, anything that's not a number? How do you store that? And the answer is you store it as a string. And notice the only difference between the syntax of what's up top here, these numbers, and this variable here is I've used little quotes. So that's how you tell Python that you're saving now something non-numeric. So a string is basically just anything that's not a number, but formally it's a string of characters. So I can have a D here, capital A, VID. I can have a space. I could put numbers in here too. So if by name it meant like my username or something, usernames oftentimes have numbers or special characters like exclamation marks, whatever. You can put anything you want to in between these quotes and store it. And Python will know that since it's in quotes, that it's not a number. You don't want it to interpret it as a number. You want Python to just interpret it as it is, as a sort of list of characters. Okay, so most of this video is just taken up with what you can do with strings and how you access individual characters, things like this. So let me just say that, or give a name to my string. Let me call it my string. If n is a non-negative number, then my string and then square braces n is the character at position n. So what do I mean by that? So here's a string variable name. It's my name, David space McCune. The way that Python views this is as a list or string of the individual characters. So there's a character D, A, V, I, D, space, capital M, etc. And each character has a position inside of the string. Okay, now Python, like most programming languages, does this, what I think you will find obnoxious thing, where it starts counting at 0. So D here, right? That's in the first position, right? That's the first character. But Python does not think of that D as character 1. Python thinks of that D as character 0. So D is in like the 0th position, which is the first position. So position 1 is actually the second character, which is A, etc. Okay, so there are 12 characters in the string. There are 11 letters plus a space. But anyway, so there are 12 characters, and the positions run from 0 to 11 for a total of 12. Okay. But notice, right, the positions don't run from 1 to 12 as you might want them to. So all that to say, if the string is called name, right, that's the name of the string, then if you put square brace and then a number in between, it's just going to read off to you the character at that spot. So the 0th character is D, character 1 is A, character 2 is V, etc., all the way up to character 11, which is E. So name square brace 7 would be a lowercase c. Name square brace 8 would be an uppercase c. So all that to say, if you have a string, saved as like my string or whatever, give it whatever name you want, you can access individual characters, individual elements of that string if you want to. That comes with a warning though. So notice, right, these positions in this particular case run from 0 to 11. Right, the string is not particularly long. In particular, there is no name square brace 12 because there's no position 12. Right, position 12 is off here somewhere, which is non-existent. Same thing with 13. There's no position 13. Same thing with -1. Now you're going too far to the left, off this edge. So if you try in the code to do things like print this or do something with it, whatever, the program will yell at you. Okay, it's not going to compile because you have confused it. You have tried to access something that does not exist. So keep that in mind. The character or the positions of a string run from 0 up until 1 fewer than the number of characters. So if there are 12 characters, 1 fewer than that, being 11, is the final position. There's no position 12, 13, 14 in this case. Okay, so here's some other things you can do with strings. So again, let me just give it some generic name, my string. Again, you can call it whatever you want. I just need a name going here. Okay, so the first function is called the length function. So len, and then the name of your string in parentheses will give you how many characters are in that particular string. So, for example, if my string is, quote, this is fun, then the length of that string is 12. So if you ask the computer to print this to the screen, print length my string, it will print 12. So let's see why. Okay, so let's just count the characters, right? THIS, that's 4 characters. The space is now 5. 6, 7. The space is 8. 9, 10, 11, 12. That period is the 12th character, and then the string is over. Okay, so a total of 12 characters, right? 9 letters, 2 spaces, and 1 period for a total of 12. You can pick off substrings if you want to. So you can go inside of a string and get little strings that live inside of a bigger string. So the way you would do that is with this square brace notation, but now you do a number colon another number. So if you do that, my string, square brace, A colon B, that's the substring of my string beginning at position A and ending at position B minus 1. Okay? So if you do from 1 to 6, this is inclusive on the 1. This will include character 1. But it's not inclusive on the 6. It will not include character 6. It will only run up to character 5. So that's kind of obnoxious because it's not symmetric. You know, you might want this to go from character A to character B. But that's just not the way it works. So anyway, if my string is, again, this is fun, my string square brace 1 colon 6, you go to character 1, which is H, that's character 1, because capital T is character 0. And then you go up to character 5. So H is 1, I is 2, S is 3, space is 4, I is 5, and then you stop. So my string 1 colon 6 is his space I. So again, not to belabor this point, but notice you don't get that 6th character S right there. Okay, so you can sometimes just omit one number or the other if you want to. So my string colon B, that's equivalent to just putting a 0 right there. So that's like saying start at the first position and go up to B minus 1. So there's an implied 0 right here up front. So sometimes you just want to start at the beginning and go up to a particular position. You can do that using this syntax. You can also put the colon on the other side. This will go from B all the way to the end of the string. Okay, so again, the last character occurs at the length of the string minus 1. So right here, right, since you don't include the length of the string, you're not doing something illegal. Length of the string is actually 1 too big, right? Because again, this string has length 12, but you don't have a position 12. You only have position 11. So anyway, if you do B colon, you'll just run all the way to the end. And where does the end occur? It occurs at the length of the string minus 1. Right? So 1 fewer than that. You can add strings together if you feel like. So if name1 is David and name2 is string McCune, then name1 plus name2 is just you slap them right together, David. And then notice there's no space here, right? Because it's just this string, and then you just immediately concatenate that string next to it. So if you want there to be a space in between the D and the M here, you could do like name1 plus a space plus name2 or something like that. But anyway, you can just glom two strings together if you want to via addition. You can delete a substring if you want to. This is a little harder because there's no function that I could find anyway that does this with strings. But here's how you can accomplish the same effect. So suppose in my string, you want to delete the characters in positions M through N. So starting with character 2 and ending with character 7, you want to delete those characters, right? Those 6 characters. So here's how you could do that. Just create a new string, which you can call a new string if you want to. You call it whatever, but you can call it new string. And what is new string going to be? Well, it's going to be pieces of my string, but with something missing. Okay, so this here, this is my string up to position M minus 1. Okay, so if you want character M gone, you will stop at M minus 1, which means an M right there. And then you'll add to that, so just cram right next to it, the rest of my string to the right of what you wanted gone. Okay, so if you want character N gone, then now you'll start, pick back up again at N plus 1 and go to the end. So basically, what are you doing, right? You're just picking off, if you want to like blow a hole through my string, right? Just kick these guys out, the guys in those positions. You can just take the guys to the left of M, the guys to the right of N, and just glom them together and create a new string that way. So just for example, if my string is, quote, this is a string, and for whatever reason you want to delete some stuff, the characters in positions 2 through 5. So you'd want to start with this I, getting rid of that. So 2, 3, 4, 5, and end with that I. Pick back up with that little S. You would just create a new string, call it whatever, my string 2, where you've kept characters 0 and 1, and you've kept characters 6 on, and then nothing else. You've kicked out characters 3, 4, and 5. Oh, and 2. Kicked out the characters 2 through 5. And you get this as a result. Okay, so that's our fourth thing you can do with a string. You can delete stuff if you feel like it. You can also insert a new string into an old string, kind of the opposite of deleting, I guess. So suppose you want to place string 1 inside string 2 at a specified location N. As with deletion, there isn't really a function to do this, but you can, as with deletion, create a new string that has the effect you want, like this. So you can say, okay, well, string 3, what's that going to be? Well, take string 2 up to position N minus 1. Okay, so again, putting an N there means you're going to keep everything to the left of N, so up to position N minus 1. Then add string 1, the thing you wanted to put in there, so now that's just there. And then pick string 2 back up again. So notice this whole thing, right? It contains string 2 because it has string 2 to the left of N, string 2 to the right of N. You've just put something in the middle. So all that to say you can insert things if you want to, And so when might you use this? At some point in the course, we're going to be doing like manipulations of DNA strands or whatever. So how would you like go into a string of genes, like the letters D, A, T, C, G, or whatever they are, I forget. But you might want to go into such a string and like insert new genes, right? You can do that using something like this. So keep the old strand there. So there's the old strand of DNA, but then in the middle, you put whatever it is you're putting in there, right? Who knows? Okay, so that's it with strings for this video. We can now do those 5 things, right? Now let's use on to how do you get input from a user. So the question here is, how do you get a user to tell you something, right? How can you have a user type something on their keyboard, hit enter, and now the program has that information? And the answer is like this. So like, for example, suppose you want string data, like a person's name. The syntax is this: name is str, which I'll come back to in a second, open parentheses, and you need this command input. And then you need to give them like a prompt. You need to tell them what you want from them. So you could ask them, what's your name? So what this line of code is doing is it's saying, look, ask the user what their name is. They're going to input something to you. So they will type something, then they will hit enter, So once they've hit enter, you should now grab whatever they told you. And whatever they've told you, you should put inside of this variable name. So you can call this whatever you want, but if you're asking for a person's name, name seems like a reasonable moniker for this variable. Anyway, so input just means, look, ask them this question and then grab what they tell you and put it in that variable. Okay, the str here versus, say, notice there's an int right there and the word float right there. If you're going to grab input from a user, you actually do usually need to think about what kind of data they're going to give you. Like, are they going to give you a number? Are they going to give you a string? That's definitely not a number, right? Like a person's name, there's no way you would want to treat that as a number, probably, right? But their age, you might want to treat it like a number, like you might want to add it to other people's ages to create an average or something, Or an exam average, right? You might want to treat that as a number, not as a string, You could certainly treat numbers as strings if you feel like, but usually when you're getting numeric data like this, you might want to do things like arithmetic with it. You want to do numeric things with it. Anyway, so when I write str there, what I'm telling the code is that this person is going to give me a string. So this name variable in memory should be a string variable. On the other hand, if somebody gives me an age, and again, maybe I want to do arithmetic with that later, like create an average age after all the users give me their data, I want you to treat that as a number. And in particular, people usually, when you ask them their ages, they almost always tell you a whole number, unless you're talking to a kid, But if you ask me my age, I say I'm 34. I don't say I'm 34.5 or whatever, right? So int here is short for integer, which in math speak just means basically a whole number. So when you say input here, how old are you? With that int right there, you're telling the computer, hey, I'm expecting the user to give me a whole number. So this age variable not only is going to be a number, but it's going to be an integer number, a whole number. By contrast, if you ask somebody for the average of their exams, averages oftentimes have decimals. Averages oftentimes are not whole numbers. So float is just the computer science way of talking about numbers with decimals. So when the user here inputs the average of their exams, you might get an average like 85.67 or whatever, right? 90.05. And having that 0.05 or that 0.67 there means you now want to save this as a float data point. So you're just telling the computer this AVG variable. Not only is it a number, but you need to expect to have decimals as part of that number. Whereas here, there's not going to be any decimals, you think. So all that to say, if you want to grab input from a user, this is the kind of command you do. You first have to think about what kind of data am I getting from them? Am I getting string data? So I'm not going to be doing arithmetic or whatever. I just want their name or something. Am I getting numeric data? And if so, is there going to be a decimal point or not? You actually have to think through that if you want to get information from a user. Anyway, let me just show you how that works inside of Spyder here, inside of what we use. So here's that code. Name equals str, input, what's your name? Age equals int, input, how old are you, etc. So notice I'm going to print this information back just to confirm that it did what I wanted. So if I hit play here, it asks me, what's your name? And then I can put the cursor right there. Notice it's blinking, and I could tell it. My name is David McCune. And I hit enter. And once I hit enter, this string of stuff, David McCune, gets saved inside of name. So when I ask it to print name here later, it should print David McCune. Now it asks me, how old are you? So I type 34, enter. What was the average of your exams? Well, surely I, as the instructor of the course, received an average of 100. But just for the sake of what I just said about decimals, right? Let's say my average is like a 99.56 or something, right? So since I have this float command here, that means the computer's expecting a decimal. So it won't have any trouble with this 0.56. Whereas with this age question, if I put 34.56, the computer's going to have some trouble with that because I didn't prepare it to anticipate decimals. So I hit enter there, and notice what it does. It prints the information back to me because I told it to. I told it to print name, age, average. So it did store that data the way I told it to, right? It stored my age inside of this age variable. It stored my, a little bit lower than what we think it should be, average, inside of this average variable, etc. Okay, so that's how you can grab information from the user. If you want to ask the user, right, hey, what were your homework scores? What did you get on these exams? What is your name? Whatever. You can always grab things from them using commands like this. Okay, so at the end of this video, you should be comfortable with the 5 string operations we discussed, and you should be able to grab things from the user using these commands here.